Hello, I'm Mary Spicer, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Behind Fashion. In this unprecedented time, the fashion industry, like so many other industries, is in distress. People around the world have joined together to demand the social justice and racial equality that we all deserve. No industry is exempt, and the hard work continues. I created this series so that we could help support one another as we move forward into this new world in a thoughtful and collaborative manner. I look forward to the sharing of ideas, solutions, and our journeys. Over the next few weeks, I will introduce you to many people behind fashion, from producers to designers, hair and makeup artists, venue managers. During this interview, my son will give me the questions that you send in, and if I can't get to them at the end of this, it's okay. I will reply as soon as possible. If you're viewing this program live or at a later time and have questions for our guest, please email me, mary@jamproductionsco.com. What does the future hold for the fashion industry, and how are our roles changing? Let's go behind fashion from shore to shore. Today, it is my great pleasure to introduce all of you to Emily Suarez, who is meeting with us from Puerto Rico. Emily was born and raised in the Bronx, New York. Her mother came from Puerto Rico and worked for the Board of Education. Emily is bilingual, fluent in Spanish and English, with knowledge of Italian and French. As she grew up, her love of fashion was brought to her by her family. Her mother worked for a milliner for a time and modeled hats. Her aunt in Puerto Rico is a seamstress and had a tailoring shop where she made her own clothes as well. To Emily, fashion is family. After high school graduation, Emily attended SUNY, majoring in accounting and business administration. After SUNY, she went to FIT and attended classes for design and merchandising. She did work with designers as a design assistant, but when it didn't make enough money, it no longer held interest for her. And she started promoting nightclubs in Brooklyn. Emily returned to FIT and took a course on how to produce fashion shows and brought them both together. Emily started promoting fashion shows at the nightclubs for local stores and boutiques, both in Brooklyn as well as Manhattan. She started working for Barbara Berman in Manhattan as a dresser and a supervisor. After working New York Fashion Week at Bryant Park and doing the front of house, she realized front of house held no interest for her. So she continued to expand her freelance work and started working with companies like LDJ, Moda Tech, and Jack Rich Productions. Emily has worked for many years as the costume manager for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. All the people that you see, from the clowns to the balloon handlers. That's Emily. She also works in-house during Market Week and in the showrooms for designers like Yves Saint Laurent, Armani, Valentino, Vera Wang, Tom Brown for Paris Fashion Week, Monique Lullier during Bridal Fashion Week in New York, Custo Barcelona, and Desigual during New York Fashion Week, among others. She has been an assistant stylist working with many celebrities like Beyonce, Mary J. Blige, Jessica and Jerry Seinfeld, Clive Owen, and Edgar Ramirez. She's assisted on music videos and their sets, plus some off-Broadway plays. Welcome, Emily, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Behind Fashion. I'm so glad that you could join us from Puerto Rico. Oh, I can't hear you yet. Try.
Sorry. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
I can. I'm so glad you're here. I usually send a cup or mug for us to clink glasses, but I don't think it got there yet.
Oh, don't worry. I do have a cup. It's not the one you sent, but I did make one for us.
Wow, that's okay, kid. Hey, let's clink glasses. You're
Thank
wonderful.
You. And I also have something for you from my backyard. I have a banana, since I know you love bananas.
From your backyard? They grow in your backyard?
Yes, they do. And they're very sweet.
I
Here.
would love one. Thank you.
You're
Oh my
welcome.
gosh, I absolutely love this and movie magic, and I'm really excited to eat this banana. It's so good to see you, Emily. We just, haven't seen each other since New York Fashion Week in
Yes,
February.
it's, September. Actually, February.
February.
Yeah.
I know, a lot has been going on. We're
I
all
know.
wondering what today is. Now, as we went over, you have worked with a lot of people. You've worked with Broadway, you've worked with music videos, televised events, live shows, runway. As an assistant stylist, can you please explain to me what are the differences when styling for a live runway, a music video, or even a televised event? There must be differences between those.
Yes. Well, when you're working on a runway show, styling has to be a little bit simpler than working on a photo shoot because a runway show is a live event and the models only have a certain amount of time to get changed to the different outfit. So it's usually better if the designer does not layer the clothing, overly layer the clothing, or change too much of the jewelry like earrings or rings or necklaces because the dresser needs time between the models to change their clothing. And people need to remember, the dressers and the stylists need to remember that they need to emphasize the clothing for the designers.
Not the accessories. I see what you're saying.
Not the accessories. It's not about the shoes. It's not about the belts. It's more about the clothing. Yeah.
And so those are more supporting pieces.
Yeah, and those are supporting pieces. And sometimes that can create an issue if they decide to put too many layers, then the outfit might not go out in time, or unfortunately, sometimes the things can be put on improperly.
Okay, so like when you're doing, all right, let's say television.
Yes.
If you're doing a televised event, you can add some more accessories. Are there concerns
when you're doing
there?
televised, since it's live, you can put whatever you want because the person is just wearing it for one time. You just got to make sure it fits properly. It needs to be tailored. If they need double stick tape, you need to make sure they have double stick tape. You need to make sure that the client is comfortable in the outfit they're wearing. And also, the main thing is that it's photographed nicely. So don't put something that it's not going to photograph well in the client.
Oh yeah, and I have seen photos and I wonder, I think it happened more in the 80s, Emily, and I'll get back on track in a quick second, but have you seen the photos where you can see through the outfit because of the lights?
Oh yeah, or they're wearing stripes and it doesn't photograph well, and you're on television, certain colors just don't come off good, So.
And that's why we have stylists. Those are important things that you don't know until you see it on film, and then you say, oh.
Right. And then when you're working on let's say a music video, you have more time. So you can overly layered, you can overly style. And usually music videos, they want to be a little bit more out there and you have more time. So sometimes in the middle of shooting a video, the client might decide they don't like that outfit, they don't like the jewelry or the sunglasses, and you might have to actually run out and purchase more items in order to change the whole look.
Oh.
So that's more like a work in process.
Oh, okay.
So like if you're doing a fashion show, you already have the look. It's already set for the day of show. But when you're doing music videos, it's a little bit more creative. You have more time, more leeway in order to change it.
And quite often they're dancing and they're moving around.
Right. So
you're not going to have anything too fussy though either, right? Or
no, but remember with the music video, they stop. No. It's not continuous. So you stop, you can fix the outfit, you can change the outfit.
But that's why they look so good.
Yeah, they look good all the time.
Yeah. Well, I like hearing about these differences. I'm going to continue with that. In the introduction, you've worked in showrooms.
Right.
You've worked with boutiques and stores. I'm so sorry. I don't really understand, I guess, what a showroom is. And with the showroom, who's coming? Who's coming to that showroom?
Well, a showroom is a place where the designers displays their line of clothing. It can be the collection for the season. Plus, they also have the collection from the previous season, which is called um, it's called, oh, I forgot the word at the moment. I'm sorry.
That's
And
all right.
yeah, and it's called and yes, and they have buyers come in to look at the collection, and then the buyers decide whether or not they want the collections for their stores. Depending where the store is located, it's what the designer will demonstrate to the stores. If the store is in the West Coast, they're going to buy certain type of items, certain colors, certain part of the collection. If it's the stores in the East Coast, they will show them different types of clothing because people in the East Coast dress differently. It also depends if the client needs the clothing for specific occasions. It could be for a gala event. If it's maybe, let's say, a dinner, or if it's for work, then it's going to be more corporate. But it all depends on where the buyer's coming from. And then the designer decides what type of clothing they're showing them.
So when you say the designer decides what kind of clothing, like if I go into a store, all the clothing is out, this is the way it looks. So maybe with a showroom, are you saying that they change the showroom knowing someone's coming in to look at them?
They might pull some items and hide them in the back so the client doesn't see them. And also, they have like mini shows, so they'll have models come out and do a little runway show for the client, so the client can see how the clothing flows, and also so they can take photographs of the models in the clothing. And then what they might also do is have the outfits worn on different models. Let's say one model might be dark hair, another model might be blonde, one model might be shorter, a little bit taller, so they can see how the clothing fits on different body types and also with different coloring. And then they can figure out the accessories also. They'll do a belt, they'll do a jacket, they'll switch it around just so they can get a better feel of the line. And also the person who's there buying the collection can also learn how to sell it themselves at the store to their clients.
I see. And that's during market week is what it's called.
That's during market week, yes, which usually takes place right after fashion week. After fashion week, the clothing goes back to the showroom, and then the designer starts having appointments to try and sell the line to different buyers. Okay,
that's amazing to me, and I have not experienced that. That is just not in my wheelhouse. So thank you for explaining that. I think that's amazing, but it's almost like little private showings.
Yes, it is private showings. It is.
Oh.
You can have a range from 2 models to 4 models, sometimes more than 1 model. Some clients will do the appointments every hour, so it's a mini show every hour.
Wow.
Others do it randomly, not by appointment.
But they're very targeted. I think what I'm hearing is they're very targeted in what they're showing them because they don't want to waste their time.
No, they don't want to waste their time. So they're not going to show something to a client that they know isn't going to buy that item, because then it's a waste of time and energy, because it's
Yeah. Now you've worked internationally. You worked during Paris Fashion Week, and you were referred by friends to a designer there. What was your role at that fashion show in Paris Fashion Week, and how does that role differ than, let's say, at New York Fashion Week?
Well, the first time I went to work during Paris Fashion Week, I was referred by a friend to work with a designer who just got accepted into the syndicate, couture syndicate. So
the which? The couture?
Yes. Couture.
And what is that? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What is that?
Well, if you're gonna when you design for couture, you need to be accepted into couture. It's not like anyone can just go and put a label on their clothing and say it's couture. There's it's by certain specifications, and that you basically you have to apply for it and get accepted by the people who are in charge. So this was the 2 new designers were displaying their collection to the syndicate and other people who were coming to the show. And since they were new, they really did not have any idea that they needed dressers to do the fashion show. So I was there to help them produce backstage. So I had to pull some people that we knew that were coming to see the show to help us dress the models. And then I had to help them set up the backstage area, because they didn't have things, they had things like thrown over the chairs, they didn't have them on racks, and they were sharing models and shoes, and they didn't realize that things needed to be lined up, so it was easier for people to put things on as they went out. They didn't understand that it was a much quicker process than a photo shoot.
Well, they're designers. You know, production is a whole nother job. That's,
right.
You know.
Newbies, they had no one to really guide them, so I was there. It was a great experience. It was fun, and we pulled it off. And the designers have gone further on, and I've gone back to Paris to help them at different shows, and we've gone from different venues. The venues have gotten bigger, and right now one of them has his own boutique in Paris. So.
Wow. And so each time, do you think that they were doing some of the things that you were telling them to do? And
yeah,
they had that learning curve?
Progress. They got PR firms, they got backstage production people that helped them out. They had dressers. So yeah, they progressed.
Wow. Well, and in thinking about managing, let's say, a backstage, I immediately start thinking about like Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and I'm going to put it up on Facebook after this. I was going to do something fun and bring up a little, like, here's our, but a picture of it. But the back of house, the costuming, can you explain to me that process and how many people are you dealing with for the Thanksgiving Day Parade?
Well, the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade is it's a tradition. It was started by the employees of Macy's, so it's Macy's employees and family and friends, and it happens every year. The Macy's employees come in from all over the United States to participate in the parade, and we have different sections. Of course, you have the balloons, and you also have the clowns, and then you have special characters, and also children. So what I do is, right now, I help supervise the balloon handlers, and balloon handlers each have overalls that they wear, and the color is different according to which balloon they're helping handle. So it's Up on the Shelf is one color, if it's McDonald, he's another color. If you're dealing with Santa Claus, then it's a different color. They also get gloves and hats. And depending on where the balloon is on the parade route is when the people have to show up, and then we have to help them get dressed. They're directed to buses, and these buses take them uptown to the beginning of the parade.
Oh, so they actually have to take a whole bus there? This is like a big system then.
Yes, it's a big system. There's a lot of communication. There's a lot of people with headphones, different lists. They prepare for months. We start preparing that week many days in advance, setting things up. There's signs everywhere guiding people. It's very difficult, but I love doing it because it's become a tradition. It's the beginning of the holidays. The only problem is, since there's so many people involved and people are getting dressed, sometimes the people get excited and they don't want to leave the room. So you have to be very diplomatic and try to guide them to the exit so they can leave. And some of the participants are CEOs and higher ups in Macy's, so they don't always like to listen to suggestions. So you have to be, kind of guide them and be nice and polite and just make sure you don't step on their toes while you're guiding them to get on the bus, please, because the parade needs to start by a certain time.
That's amazing. So let's say Elf on the Shelf is first, and you have 10 overalls, and you notice as they're going to the bus, 8 overalls are gone.
Right.
I'm sure you're having more than one, at a time. But what do you do when people are missing?
Well, we keep track. The dresser who's in charge of each rack, or many racks, is sometimes the balloons are quite large, so it's more than one rack. They need to keep track of a list, and they let us know, well, there's like 4 people missing or 6 people missing. And depending on the size of the balloon, they need to decide whether or not the balloon can go out, because you need a certain amount of handlers in order to handle the balloons, because they're quite large. And if by chance, if there aren't enough people, they will go to another balloon and pull people to move over to the other balloon, so they can, otherwise the balloon won't be able to go into the parade.
Wow. So there is a lot. There's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of communication, and yeah, that sounds like production to me.
Yeah, a lot of communication, and setting up the day before is very, it takes many hours. We're there for many hours, and everything has to be done specific in a certain way, just to make sure that, you know, for crowd control, and so everyone has the info they need, so they know where to go. And you know,
Easy
and
to
my job
navigate.
is just run around the room and make sure, you know, put out the fires, as you say.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
sometimes people they don't submit the correct size for their overalls, so then we have to go and try and find a larger size in the
yeah.
correct color, because remember, it's by color, and do it in a
Yep.
nice way. And then we have to pin up their overalls, because sometimes they're too long, so we have to make sure we have to hem. But we do it with
Right.
pins, or we do it with tape.
Wow,
It has to be done
that's very
quickly,
close to
because
Fashion Week right there.
yes, it is exactly, you know, except we're dealing with normal people, they're not models.
Well, the last time, like I had mentioned earlier, that we saw each other was February Fashion Week. You were heading back to Puerto Rico. I know that you guys had earthquakes before you came, and then the virus, COVID-19, was coming when you left.
Right.
How are you doing? How is everybody in Puerto Rico? Did you guys get a stay-at-home order? What happened?
Yes. Well, when unfortunately, when the COVID hit, people from the earthquakes are still living in tent cities. They still don't have any, you know, they don't have their homes. The homes are still crumbled. Because the island has a lot of elderly people, and we get a lot of tourists from all over the world. The governor decided to put a stay-at-home order quite quickly in order to keep the disease hitting the island. So unfortunately, we had there was a salsa festival, and there was a man who came in from Panama by Miami, and he knew he was sick, and he went to the festival, which wasn't good. And then from the cruise ships, we had I think a couple of Italians who had the disease, and they were the first 3 COVID casualties on the island. And because of that, they implemented a stay-at-home order. We had a curfew, which is from it started from 5 to 9, and then now it's 5 to 7. We still have a curfew, and they take your temperature when you arrive at the airport. It's done manually, but it's also done with infrared cameras, and it's done by the National Guard.
Wow.
And let's say if you're a tourist and you're going to a hotel, if you have a temperature, they make you stay quarantined for 2 weeks. If you live here, they just make you, quarantine at home for 2 weeks.
Wow. Yeah, we've heard of that. Like Hawaii, I think if you get there, you have to quarantine for 2 weeks no matter what.
Right. Yeah. And you can't go to the beaches, and you have to get your food, taken to you. You can't go to, but nothing's really open yet. I mean, with the stores slowly started opening, restaurants is just takeout. The same thing with bars. The beaches right now are open, but only for exercising. So you can go for walks, you can run, you can go in for swimming, but you can't really hang out at the beach.
Right.
Unfortunately. And I think next week the smaller stores will be opening, because right now it's just the major department stores that are open.
But you and your family, everybody's good?
Yes, luckily we're all okay. I have many of my family, either they're nurses or EMT workers. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking sometimes, but they've all been tested whenever they needed to be tested, and everyone's negative so far. So we're okay.
And please thank them for everything that they do from all of us. I mean, it's not enough, but please thank them for us.
Stressful,
Well, my son is my right hand helping me today, and he's going to let me know. Hayden, do we have questions today? Okay, I've got 2 that were sent in early, and then anybody watching live, we can go ahead and answer those. I was trying to look, and honestly, guys, I'm just not very good at it looking while I'm on here, so we'll respond to those later. Emily's very good about it. Here's a question: Are the shows in Paris held in tents as like New York, or a single venue? New York now we're at.
Yeah,
venues.
Well, they're not held in tents, and they're like New York. They're held in different venues throughout the city. And the only difference is in Paris is the buildings are so beautiful and the architecture is amazing. The fashion shows just have a different vibe to them because you're in these beautiful buildings, and I feel like the people are a little bit more artistic. They have more, well, it's Paris, so, and but in different venues. And one thing I like is that they have a lot of smaller shows for like the up and coming designers, and they come from all over the world. So I feel like I get to see more different. I get to see different shows from different countries. So you get to feel a vibe of everything. And so when I come back home to New York, I have those visions in my head, which when I'm working with a designer, even if it's Fashion Week, I already know what's coming up. So I feel like I can help them in a way with like guiding them, like, oh, you know, this is the new look. Maybe we should try it this way. So I already, and that helps a lot when you're working. But
Yeah.
Fashion Week is a little bit different also because it's a bit more open. When you go to the shows, people are more accepting. They're friendlier. I mean, that's been my experience. I don't know what's anyone else's experience has been.
And I think maybe a little bit, New York, we tend to be aggressive.
Yes, we are.
And and there you have it.
Yeah, well, I'm a New Yorker, so I know.
Yeah.
It's a little bit aggressive. It's a different attitude. But yeah, but both cities have their own beauty.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Absolutely. It's honestly, I went and worked a couple events in Chicago, and
Yeah.
Chicago has these beautiful, beautiful buildings. And I was amazed. I had no idea. So there are all kinds of places like this. And I think they all have their own
Beauty,
kind of,
Mm-hmm.
their own thing. Here's another
One
question.
thing is that fashion is universal. I feel that fashion is universal, you know, so wherever you go, if you're into fashion, you feel, you know, you're accepted because you're all interested in you have the same passion for clothing or for art.
Yeah, and we can tell a lot about each other by what we're wearing, not necessarily in a judgmental way, just, you know, if I'm coming from yoga, I'm wearing yoga pants, you know, so I'm not going out to a dinner. If I'm wearing a ball gown, maybe I'm going to a gala.
Right.
It will indicate to you what it is that I am doing. Oh, Emily, how has being bilingual been helpful in your career?
Well, being bilingual has helped me a lot because when I work with DC Igual and Justo Barcelona, sometimes the people they bring in from Spain don't speak English, so I can help with the translation, and especially backstage when they want to give instructions to some of the dressers and how things need to be styled, or what type of shoe is going with what, if there's a shoe swap or things like that. And when I travel, it helps me, and like, I understand French, but I don't speak it very well. They speak it quite fast, so I get nervous, you know, and you get a little bit intimidated by the way they speak. So I have a tendency not to try to speak it while I'm there. But if I ask people if they know Spanish, usually they do, so that I can communicate with them in Spanish. That's if they don't speak English. Yeah. So it has helped me a lot.
Yeah, and those are the Romance languages. So luckily you have a little bit of a leg up on there. I found it. And like you said, it's much easier to understand than to speak a foreign language, I find. But it really does matter to make sure that people understand what it is that you're saying, because sometimes they'll say, yes, I understand, and they don't. And what you were saying was very important. So I am running out of time. So wow, we could talk forever. I was starting to just relax into it. So I'm going to stop there, and more questions I will send to you. But thank you so much for being here, Emily, and speaking with us from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
We'll put up more pictures, and I'm just completely jealous about the beaches, but you can be jealous about my mountains in Colorado.
Yes, I will. And hopefully I'll see you in September.
Yes, I'm hoping so. Let's see what happens.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. And thank you all for attending this week's Behind Fashion episode from Shore to Shore with guest Emily Suarez. You can find her on Instagram on Suarez, SUAREZNYC. And I will have that up on my website as well. and I'll put all of this information on Facebook. Next week, I'll be joined by Martin Casella to discuss Behind Fashion's entrance. See you all next week, Wednesday, June 17th, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, noon on the East Coast, 9 a.m. Pacific Coast, and 5 p.m. British Summer Time. This conversation has been recorded, and a link will be sent to you in a few days. If you have not received it, simply ask. Thank you, and see you next week.